I'm Cary Kelly. Welcome to my kitchen. It is turning into fall weather, but we're still thinking about healthy eating, and we're going to cook fish today. Cooking fish can be a little bit tricky. Number one, finding good quality fish might be the hardest thing. We're so lucky in Alexandria to have Moss Seafood right on Pendleton Street. So we're going to go visit Michael and learn a little bit about picking out just the right fish. And then we're going to come back here and cook something that we pick up from his just delivered stock. So let's go head down and see Moss Seafood. So we're at Moss Seafood today on Pendleton Street in Old Town, and I'm so excited to talk to another Alexandrian and a local business owner. Michael, how are you? It's nice to see you today. Thanks for spending some time with us, because I have lots of questions about fish and seafood.
Sure.
I love to eat fish. I have found that it's hard to find good quality fish.
Sure. Yeah.
So having you here in the neighborhood is a real benefit to all of us, I think.
Thank you.
But I think for a lot of people, buying and even cooking and eating fish is a little bit of a mystery. I find some people are nervous about cooking fish or how to buy it. So I thought maybe you could give us a few hints. And the first thing that comes to my mind is, where do you buy fish? And where is it sourced, and what kind of fish are you bringing in?
Sure. So I source my stuff from up and down the East Coast, from Boston to Miami. The big hubs are Boston, then Jessup, Maryland. That's kind of where all my freight comes into. And then Miami is another huge hub. Between, I'd say, New Jersey and kind of Florida, it's a lot of small distributors that run their own trucks, so you have to kind of know the little businesses for those fish. That's where I source my flounder, my bluefish. A lot of the local fish comes from little guys. The more common fish, salmon, cod, that comes from bigger vendors. Mostly Boston, but things like snapper, grouper, other large fish like tuna and swordfish, that'll come out of Miami.
Oh, okay, because those are coming out of the international or West Coast waters. And
yeah, exactly. They come out of like South America, the Caribbean, and the Pacific as well.
Oh,
yeah.
That's great. That's great. And when you get fish in, how do you know that it's as fresh as it can be?
The first thing I look for is the eyes. They're right there on the outside. You can see if they're glassy. If they look like eyes, no cloudiness, anything like that, then the fish should be fresh. The second thing I do is I check the gills, unless there's no head or gills on there, which the fish does come like that sometimes. Yeah. And then I feel for sliminess, tightness. Soft fish is a sign of old fish.
Interesting.
Yeah, as the fish is out of the water and starts to break down, it gets softer and softer and softer. So a nice firm fish is a good thing to look for.
Well, that was really interesting, and some great hints for the consumer to know how to choose fish too.
Yeah.
So something occurred to me while you were talking. Is there a season for fish like there is for produce?
There definitely is for certain fish, especially the ones that are off of our coast, like rockfish or striped bass as it's known. That one will live here in this area in the winter time. They like a certain water temperature. So they'll follow that water temperature wherever it goes. In the summer months, like now in August, they're up in Massachusetts, Nova Scotia, Canada. They have a stricter catch limit up there. They only allow larger fish, a lot smaller, like actual catch numbers to come out of the water. So the fish is more expensive, it's harder to come by, and now it's completely done. But it'll come back in stock in like October, around Halloween. It starts to swim back to our area, and Virginia and Maryland have less strict catch limits, so you can get smaller fish or just more fish as well.
So if somebody has a favorite fish, they should come and ask you the best time of year to buy it.
Oh yeah.
That's great. That's
yeah.
good to know. That's
yeah.
really good to know. So If somebody wants to start incorporating more fish into their diet, which is certainly a healthy thing, and they know they can get good quality fish here, is there something you might recommend as what you might call a starter fish that's easier to cook and maybe a milder flavor?
Yeah, salmon is always a great place to start. The farm-raised salmon has a really high fat content. It's really rich, creamy. The flavor goes well for a lot of palates. And it's easy. It's easy to cook. It's really hard fish to overcook because of the fat content. So it's a nice one to start. Another nice starter would be something like a bronzino. Even though it's a whole fish, a lot of people get intimidated by whole fish.
Yeah.
But they're super simple. You have the fish nice and clean. We do that. And you just stuff the belly with some herbs and lemon and bake it. And when it's done baking, you're eating. So,
that sounds delicious.
Yeah.
And baking it, unless you forget about it, you can always put the timer on. And
yeah, exactly.
And you won't overcook that either. Because I do
Yeah.
think that's a big fear of cooking fish, that it can overcook so easily.
Yes, yeah. And bronzini is another one where they have a high fat content. So
Oh,
it saves you with
excellent.
that. And the whole fish has bones too, which works just like bones in meat. It adds flavor, it adds moisture.
And structure some, probably. Yeah, yeah. So can I come in here and buy a whole fish?
Sure.
If I wanted to do.
Yeah. We offer whole fish that's sized for the individual, or like a couple, like the bronzini.
Ah.
They're good for 2 people to share. The trout is nice for 1. And then depending on what I have coming in, different fish we offer whole. That would be nice. Would be the flounder is a popular one to get whole. Red snapper whole is another one that's popular. And sometimes when I have larger fish that are a size that's for filleting, but they're not overly large. If you were putting together maybe 6 people, 8 people, a whole fish laid out in the center of the plate might be a nice gathering.
Well, it sounds like you're a source for everything. If somebody came in and said, I don't want to do heads or tails.
Oh, yeah.
And I'm serving this
For
many
sure.
people.
Yeah.
You'd be able to tell them the
Yep.
best fish to buy and how to buy it, and they can get it filleted and ready to cook from you.
Definitely. We know about portioning. We typically recommend what the customers say is a good size. So we stick with what we tell people. And knife work, splitting down the back, filleting, we can do it all.
That's fantastic.
Yeah.
What's your favorite fish?
Probably salmon. I eat it the most because
okay.
it's my son's favorite.
Oh,
so,
that's
yeah.
great. And how does your son like to have it prepared for him?
He takes portions and he eats it with tortellinis and pesto.
Oh, it sounds perfect to me.
Yeah.
Sounds perfect to me.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to take the sea bass home, and I'm
Okay.
going to make sea bass with a lavender Blanc.
Oh, that sounds really good.
So I'll make sure to send you a picture. I think that
Yeah.
that buttery sauce over that silky sea bass should be a great meal. So I'll
Yeah,
let you know how it
we'll-
turns
yeah,
out.
for sure.
Thanks for having us here today.
Oh, you're welcome.
I'm really excited to cook your fish and share some more recipes. And I'll be seeing you again from my own table soon.
Awesome.
Thank
Thanks
you,
for
Michael.
stopping in. You're welcome.
I learned so much from Michael about fish. He's really knowledgeable, isn't he? It was a great visit. So I picked up some gorgeous ivory white Chilean sea bass from Michael today. And I am going to make sea bass with a lavender Bourblanc sauce. So Bourblanc basically means white butter. It's a French butter sauce. I am adding a couple of lavender buds, and this is a gorgeous culinary lavender from France. The aroma is amazing. And when using just the right amount of lavender in cooking, it is delicious. But be forewarned, if you have not cooked with lavender before, that just going over the line to too much is indeed a disaster. It's like biting into a bar of soap. So we're going to be very stingy with the lavender we put in this sauce. We just want a hint of that kind of grassy floral note of lavender without it taking over the dish. So we have 2 parts today. One is cooking the fish and the other one is preparing the Bourblanc. And they are done separately and then brought together on the plate. So let's go over to the stove and start making our Bourblanc sauce. So Bourblanc is really butter that's been emulsified with some wonderful ingredients that add flavor but also create a consistent emulsification. And there are very few ingredients in this. It requires not much more than a watchful eye. You don't want to let the sauce get away from you. So what we're doing is heating our pan up to medium, and we are going to start adding some of our ingredients. I have finely chopped shallots. Shallot is much better than onion. They're a little bit sweeter, so you want shallots, and quite finely chopped. So a tablespoon is going into our saucepan, and then we are adding 2 tablespoons of vinegar. And I have used a really delicate, beautiful violet vinegar from Lindera Farms. That's a local vinegar maker. You could use any white wine or champagne vinegar, is just perfect. We're adding a 1/2 cup of a dry white wine. I have a Southern Italian wine here. Any dry white wine will work perfectly. And 2 tablespoons of heavy cream. So we're going to cook this together, whisking. We don't want to bring it to a boil, but we do want it on medium-high heat, just under a boil. And it's going to cook until it has reduced by about 70%. Once that is reduced, we're going to start adding the butter slowly and whisking it in until we have a beautiful, golden, smooth sauce for our fish. So we're going to let this start to do its work and heat up and reduce. And I'm going to start working on the fish. I have 2 beautiful pieces of sea bass, which I have patted dry. Very important. You don't want really wet fish going into your pan because it steams it and prevents it from browning nicely. I have put a little salt on it. Don't salt fish too far ahead of time. It can start to make it mushy. Salt it just within 10 minutes of when you're going to cook it. So we're going to heat up our cast iron skillet. I'm going to keep stirring our sauce while we're working on the fish. I have also preheated the oven to 400 degrees. So the fish is going to go into the oven for just the last 5 minutes. Otherwise it could dry out and get too brown on the outside in the pan. So we're going to get our skillet under medium heat. And I'm going to put a little olive oil in here. Just enough olive oil to lubricate the pan a little bit. I usually like butter with sea bass, but we're going to be drowning the sea bass in butter. So there's no need to use that in the pan. I'm using a cast iron skillet. I like the way it heats. I like the way it gives us a little crust on the outside of the fish. So once that's warm, we're going in skin side down, 5 minutes on each side, 5 minutes in the oven, and the fish will be ready. It could not be easier. All right, our skillet's ready. The fish is going in, and we'll let that just sit, start to caramelize that skin, get a little brown. We'll flip it over, and I'm going to do a quick 10 to 12 seconds on, since it's so thick, on each side. So our base has reduced by 2/3, and I'm going to start, and I'm going to turn the heat down a little bit and add just 2 pieces of butter at a time and whisk until it's melted or nearly melted. You have to continue whisking until all the butter's used up. That's where you get your emulsification and you have a nice, smooth, silky sauce, which is what we're looking for. This is going to make a beautiful plate. And just watch the heat on your stove. You want it to be medium-low, so you're getting heat, but not, you don't want it boiling or bubbling. See how it's coming together nicely and getting smooth. The butter should be melting fairly quickly if you want to monitor your heat according to that. You can smell this butter. It smells so good. Who doesn't love butter? Our fish is cooking nicely. It needs a few more minutes, and then we're going to pop that in the oven to finish, and right about that time our sauce is going to be ready and we can plate and take a taste. You can see how little time. The fish is a total of 15 minutes cooking time. I would say this sauce is probably a total of maybe 20. And there's very little prep. Mincing your shallots, salting your fish, going to Moss Seafood to buy your fish. This is an easy weeknight dinner and so elegant. This is very similar to a hollandaise. Hollandaise, of course, is a cold butter sauce that has lemon juice in it for the emulsifier. So very similar technique even. Now, as we get to the end of this, I'm going to put in just 4 to 5 lavender buds, and that is it. It would be beautiful to have the whole thing speckled with lavender, but you wouldn't like the taste. I'm going to turn the heat off of this, continue to stir. It's a perfect texture. Now, one little hint. If your sauce breaks, which means the oil separates, it's not a disaster. You can redeem that. Throw an ice cube in, stir until it comes back together, and you can salvage a broken sauce. All right, we are going to pop the fish in the oven. That's preheated to 400 degrees. We're going to let that finish. The sauce is fine to sit. I have a convection bake option on my range, and I've put it into a convection oven. It's really not necessary, but the important thing to know is to lower the temperature 25 degrees when you use convection. Convection bakes sort of in a circle all around. It actually bakes things faster, so it's great to use convection to cut down on cooking time. You just have to make sure that you don't overcook. So you lower the temperature and keep a real close eye on time. I'm leaving this fish in the oven for 5 minutes, and that's going to be it, and it'll be ready. And then we're going to plate it, put our beautiful silky sauce over it, and have a bite. So I'm going to pull the sea bass out of the oven. I think it is ready to be plated. Look at that beautiful, they're like pearls, the color of the sea bass. I just love this fish. I'm going to give our sauce one more stir and add a little bit of salt. I did taste it before, so taste and see if you feel like you need salt in your sauce. Beautiful. If you wanted to serve this at a dinner party, you could put this sauce in a gravy boat or a beautiful serving bowl, plate your fish, and let people pass the sauce to put on their plates. I think that would be gorgeous. So I'm going to get a plate, and we are going to prepare our meal. Look at the beautiful caramelization on that fish. It's so beautiful. Unlike meat, fish does not need to rest. You rest meat so that the juices can start to firm up again in the meat and not run out all your moisture, but that doesn't happen with fish. So you can take it straight out of the oven onto your plate. That's the good news. You don't have to wait to eat. So let's spoon some sauce over this gorgeous fish. All right, this beautiful sauce. I'm going to get a lavender bud or two. We're just going to spoon that over. Isn't that gorgeous? It's a rich sauce. You don't need very much, just a little bit. I would serve this with rice that has little bits of preserved lemon or lemon zest in it, and even a little parsley. Lemon and lavender is wonderful together. Lemon and butter is good together. I think that would be a gorgeous accompaniment to have rice with specks of yellow to mimic the butter and little bits of parsley chopped in it, and you would have a elegant and really very easy weeknight meal. So let's have a taste. Oh, the fish is so tender and moist. This is so good. Sea bass is buttery anyway. Having the little bit of browning, which is why I like to use cast iron, the little bit of texture that comes from the browning on each side of the fish is really good with this rich sauce. And then the sauce, you taste the butter, a little bit of bite from the vinegar, and a little sweetness from the shallot. And I get just a hint of something floral. And that's how you want lavender to happen. You want people to say, what is that surprising taste? And not necessarily identify it. This is a winner for an elegant dinner party or a weeknight dinner. I hope you will make this and try your own Bourblanc with sea bass. Thanks for being in my kitchen today, and bon appetit.